Hey internet, it's Paisley Computer and I'm back with a slew of repair videos. I've been busy in the shop huffing solder fumes for the last like 3 months, so hopefully you didn't miss me. I got a lot of stuff cooking up, so do the old like and subscribe if you like repair stuff, because I got a few more coming up. But anyway, we're going to be talking about a Korg DW-8000, a synthesizer released in 1985, featuring Korg's new at the time digital wave synthesis generator. So this thing's kind of more of an FME kind of thing, in my opinion. It kind of sounds more like a souped up DX, which I liked it. It's pretty fun. But I got this thing through an electronic recycling facility, and if you're ever looking for instruments and such, I highly recommend you volunteer at your local electronic recycling facility, because you'll get all kinds of goodies if you're giving back to the community and being a good steward of recycling. So go ahead and get down and dirty and get yourself some sick gear for very cheap, because I actually ended up selling this synthesizer for quite a bit of money. And since I got it for free from electronic recycling facility, it's all profit, baby. So little tip for all you flippers out there. But anyway, let's get down on this thing. I want to show you what I did, how I did it, and we'll take it from there. So let's get to it. So first things first, when starting one of these overhaul repair projects, these things always are nasty as hell. So before you get down, you gotta clean the suckers. And it's always, I just use a very mild spray, which is it's a method cleaner. It does okay on plastics. It's just good at kind of getting rid of the grease and grime, and breaks up the dust and stuff that's kind of caked on these things. I don't know. I guess piano players just don't clean their equipment. Y'all are filthy, disgusting creatures. I have so much dust and grime on my workbench to prove it. So here, all I'm doing is just kind of a real general, just I call it like a deep. It's not a deep cleaning, but it's just like a deep wipe down. Basically, I'm just taking my time, just taking a few inches at a time, and just trying to really basically just get a little bit of wet paper towel with the cleaner on it across the entire surface. Next step is getting kind of more deeper into the crevices of everything. I've got these awesome Q-tips. It's basically just like a wooden skewer with a little bit of cotton on the end, and these things just vacuum up dust. So as you can see here, in the little cracks and crevices of these sliders, you can really get in there and just kind of pull all the debris out pretty easily without it getting stuck in the middle. And you can remove all the caps and get really down and dirty. I mean, obviously, yes, you can disassemble the entire thing and like try to wash the case, but often I find that is not a great method, because you're going to lose the stickers, and I don't know, moisture just has a sneaky way of getting trapped inside some of these old school cases. So I just try to do like a dry clean the best that I can, and that's just generally a lot of manual effort, but it eventually all pays off. So you just continue on trying to scrape the stuff out. I do the best I can to not get the debris to fall into the crack, because obviously that's just stuff we got to clean later on. But this case does have these, like, they're not really seams. It's just like a kind of like a deep recess in between each section of the keyboard. And these things are just loaded with grime, and it just looks absolutely disgusting in person. So here, I'm just trying to get as much of that gunk out as I can. I'm gonna assume that at some point this was in front of a smoker, just because it was sticky and gunky. But now that we finally got the top wiped down and all the crevices and gunk stripped out the best that I can, now it's time to go through and take out the many screws that hold the bottom plate on. We're obviously in fast forward mode. You know, it's a lot more tricky taking these bottom plates off than you think, because all the screws are black and sometimes you just can't see stuff and you don't really quite know what's connected or what direction things are going to fall when you first pull the board or pull the base plate off. And in this situation, it felt like, yep, the boards are connected to both the bottom plate and to the keyboard itself. So when you open this thing, it basically opens up like a taco. So you got all the smithereens, you know, in the middle. As soon as you open it up, it just kind of spreads everything out, which is, you know, it's incredible how much stuff they slam in these keyboards. It just kind of looks like a regular keyboard body, and then when you open it up, there's, you know, 4 to 5 different boards doing all sorts of different things with cabling all across it and power supplies, and it can definitely be daunting when you first open these things up. But if you take your time and you just kind of look around and recognize what you're looking at, in this scenario, this is me just looking at it and just taking it all in. And after staring at it for a while, you know, you kind of start to see how the thing is assembled. So the first thing that I'm doing here is cutting all the zip ties that are holding all the bunches and bunches of cables together. So the zip ties are nice. It, you know, it does keep things organized, but unfortunately, it makes it impossible to move any of the boards. So once I use my little box cutter to cut a bunch of those zip ties, I was able to kind of slide the key bed out of the way. Now, my goal here isn't a full disassembly. I'm just very dangerously and precariously trying to get my way to this. These really rotted, disgusting sliders. The corrosion in these sliders is causing all kinds of pops and hisses and stuff when you move it, and it doesn't have very good control. And unfortunately, these components are extremely hard to find, if not very expensive. So we got to make do with what we got. And the way you do that is you put some deoxit on it, and then you move it back and forth, and 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 you move it back and forth. And then you put a little bit of deoxit on it, and then you move it back and forth, 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 and you put a little bit of deoxit on it, and then you move it back and forth, and then you move it back and forth, and then you move it back and forth, and then you wipe away a little bit of deoxit and try to get rid of some of that corrosion, and then you move it back and forth, and then you move it back and forth, and then you move it back and forth, and you put a little bit more deoxit on it, and then you wipe away the corrosion, and then you move it back and forth, and then you move it back and forth, and then you move it back and forth, and then you spray a little deoxit on it, and you wipe away the corrosion, and then you move it back and forth, and then you move it back and forth, and then once you do that, you put a little bit of deoxit on it, and then you move it back and forth, and then you move it back and forth, and then once you're done with that, you wipe away the corrosion, and then finally you move it back and forth a few more times, and you take a look at all your hard work of all that gross junk that comes off, and honestly, it just comes out like brown ooze. And after you're done cleaning up all the ooze, you can finally take this thing outside and just give it a good old spray down. You're just compressed air. We're just trying to get every piece of hair, every piece of dust, just anything that's going to bridge a connection and drive you crazy later on. There is a little bit of corrosion and pitting happening, so I just carefully hit it with a little bit of sandpaper and just use the can of air to make sure all the rust was just getting blown away. So with a new clean bottom on there and the innards cleaned out,